After placing high in a hobbyist game programming competition put on by new PC gaming company ENIX, Koichi Nakamura and Yuji Horii's game dev careers took off. Working with passionate ENIX producer Yukinobu Chida, the two men helped ENIX capitalize on the new Nintendo Famicom craze. And after successfully launching a text-heavy adventure game on the more action-oriented Famicom owner base and finding shocking success, all three men believed it was finally time to launch the first ever RPG for the Famicom. After a chance encounter with renowned composer Koichi Sugiyama and a lucky connection through Yuji's other job writing for Jump magazine to rising manga star Akira Toriyama, the perfect team was pulled together and Mr. Chida announced his RPG ambitions to the company. Despite the potential risk for failure, they began development of the game, and after some heady soul-searching and some clever programming innovations, the plan was set and the team was ready to begin full development on their new title, Dragon Quest. Hello everyone and welcome back to The Quest, where today we will be wrapping up our coverage of the lesser known but incredible one-off biographical manga, The Road to Dragon Quest. And we've already kept you waiting long enough for this second half, so we're going to dive right in. But stick around after for more info on the history and reception of the manga, thanks in large part to our friend, fellow DQ content creator, and excellent amateur researcher and historian, Pechi. But for now, let's dive back into the story. Chapter 5. Music. We pick up the story in a meeting at ENIX where Mr. Chida is briefing the other studio execs, and he informs them that they are targeting a release window for February of the following year, which, if my timeline is correct, is just 2 months away as we are currently in early to mid-December. He then finally plays his Sugiyama card, informing the board of his intentions to have him score the music. The board seems stunned by this news, but we leave the scene before we see their reaction. We then catch up with Koichi and Yuji as they share a cup ramen meal and update each other on development. And things get very technical very fast as they are working hard on the password system and assessing how much memory they can afford to give to the alphabet system. In the original Japanese version, there was no save battery like in the American port Dragon Warrior, so they relied on a password system, but had to carefully balance the amount of letters they could allocate without eating up the limited memory. They balance this against the tiles they need to create the locations, and find that they are able to recoup some of the memory by using less tile types overall. Yuji then briefly asks Koichi if he has any New Year's plans, to which he retorts they will obviously be working, showing how loaded and limited their production schedule is, which will become even more apparent very soon. The alphabet limitations then creep up again as they discuss how many katakana characters they can use in the text of the game. Now, this is a little complicated due to the multiple Japanese alphabets and how they're used in naming on top of the technical memory discussion going on. So I won't fully elaborate on this, but suffice it to say it's an episode that illustrates how much of a never-ending battle memory conservation was in these early years of game development, as names of items and locations were sometimes changed so they could use less letters of the alphabet in the overall programming. This is one of the places where Yuji's split career as a programmer and writer helped the team, as he understood the data limitations as he wrote the game's story and could even find workarounds to pitch the team, who in turn focused on finding ways to make the game as fun as possible within these limitations. After a brief montage of work on the game, we see Yuji and Koichi in their limited time off, both shopping separately for new games to play. And this is where one of Dragon Quest's notorious lewd and cheeky themes starts to have an impact on the development of the original title, as both men just happen to be picking up the same lewd PC game. And Koichi's newfound fame as a game programmer bites him in the butt a little bit here. As both men sit down to enjoy their time off, they are both quickly frustrated by a convoluted manual and controls, buggy and unbalanced game design, and worst of all, just bad writing. Both men work away furiously in hopes of foo-foo rewards, only to find nothing at the end of the game but one mediocre bikini picture. Both men are furious, as the game's marketing lied to them, and Koichi even throws the game out of the window. before reluctantly deciding he should at least grab the box to get something out of his crappy purchase. Their precious rare time off has been completely wasted on a bad game. Back at the office, the men look over the completed tile designs as the assistant shows up, bearing more ramen cups, and to my shock, even a name finally, that being Kakihara. The men show her the tile work and draw her attention to the importance of the bridge tile. They ask if she understands its meaning, which she fails to guess, and they reveal that the bridges will carry special meaning for the player, as they will learn when you cross one, you are entering territory with even harder monsters and challenges. They then move on to discussion about the overworld, where Koichi engages Yuji in a conversation on how bad recent game releases have been. He starts venting his frustrations, which Yuji agrees with. The two men get into a heated discussion about how things like false advertising on the box art and bad gameplay experiences are betraying the players. Customers buy games to have fun, and these sellers betray those customers with shitty games. The two men decide to funnel their frustrations into fuel for Dragon Quest and vow to make a game players can understand without even opening the manual, and declare their war on bad games for the justice of the player. Everyone stares at the display dumbfounded, and Kakihara asks what the game is that pissed them off so much. And both men look for a way out of explaining what exactly they've been playing. So they go right back to talking about the world map they're designing. Koichi can't help himself and starts complaining about another bad game. The two men can't control themselves when it comes to talking about games, and another programmer begs them to pipe down so the others can get back to the real work at hand. And then, it was Christmas Eve. And as the team is discussing monster designs and specifically the gold golem with a low XP reward but a high gold bonus, Kakihara makes the sudden realization that it's Christmas Eve, and her and another girl in the office mourn their fate of being stuck in a place like this, with no date. So the whole team decides to go out for a bit and enjoy the Christmas shopping scene. And Yuji immediately falls for the same trap again, and suggests another lewd computer game to Koichi. I'm sure this will end differently for them this time. And with that, the team closes out the year of 1985 and welcomes in 1986, with less than 2 months to meet their deadline. We learn that the dedicated team worked over the New Year break, but are about to fall into new, unexpected problems. Koichi is walking into the office, giddy with a surprise for Mr. Chida. The team audio programmer has already managed to complete an entire soundtrack for the game. We pick up inside where Yuji is explaining to the team that even though party dynamics would really liven up the battle experience, he thinks they should wait to implement this in potential sequels, and that they should give the player an easier time managing and learning stats for just one character, which again might seem strange to us now, but was a good way to acclimate action game players to new info-heavy gameplay without overwhelming them, and even getting them excited for more complex gameplay in the future. Yuji mentions battle music, which both Koichi and Mr. Chida immediately jump at, eager to share their own surprises with the team. Mr. Chida gets his surprise out first and informs the team he's drafted Koichi Sugiyama for the project, which causes Koichi to panic. He pleads that even though Sugiyama is massively talented, the game music is a different beast. Yuji agrees and shares his concern, trusting a classical composer to handle the task. Mr. Chida pushes back and informs them of what he learned about many players also being music lovers, and how he wants the game's music to be a cut above and really capture the player's imagination. Koichi gets frustrated and vents that Mr. Chida can do what he wants, but that a composer won't understand games and won't be right for the job, and that he can't agree with his decision. Mr. Chida again pushes back, and Yuji gets worried about the escalating tension. He then tries to reel Koichi in, but Koichi is already fired up and yells that a composer will get angry when he's asked by programmers to rewrite the music if it doesn't fit the gameplay, and that a composer won't understand the process of game music at all. Mr. Chida is also getting frustrated and pushes back again, but in the moment of tension can't explain why Koichi is misunderstanding him. There's a very tense moment in the office before Mr. Chida decides to leave and stew at a nearby coffee shop. Yuji then learns that Koichi already had music for the game, and that drove him a little further than he would normally go. And he shares it's also his first time hearing about this idea from Mr. Chida. Koichi is bemoaning the wasted work their audio programmer put in, when another programmer comments on the talented work of Sugiyama, and specifically the opening theme to Return of Ultraman, which I believe I found the one they're referring to and is playing now. This clearly starts to excite Yuji and everyone else in the room, who all seem to have fond memories of the song. Koichi even admits he was obsessed with the show as a kid, and when somebody mentions the sentimental tone of the music, we can see Koichi considering how that could be good for Dragon Quest, and Yuji recommends at least meeting Sugiyama in person. We then see Mr. Chida leaving the coffee shop in freezing, drizzly rain, and we see a very serious but humble Koichi approach him, drenched, and immediately apologizing for blowing up. And he asks if they could meet Sugiyama with their own eyes to see if the idea could work. Mr. Chida is clearly impressed by this, but immediately yells at Koichi for not having an umbrella. He then forces Koichi to take his own and go home and take a warm bath. He tells him if he comes down sick now, ENIX could be in real trouble. Mr. Chida then walks himself through the pouring rain, and we can see the gesture has a deep impact on Koichi. And this is what I meant in my last video about how I like how there are no villains, and that the antagonist of the story is simply the difficulty and challenges of what these men are trying to achieve. Here, neither man is portrayed as a villain or acting out of personal interest. They both just had their own way of trying to contribute something they considered great to the project, and they came to blows creatively. It shows a very healthy approach to creative differences and the importance of putting the project above your own ideas when you're working with a team. It's a good perspective for young creatives. Anyways, the story then picks up a few days later when the men finally get to meet Sugiyama in person. Almost immediately, the men enter a discussion about games, and Sugiyama shares his love for casino games, which the other men also appreciate, something that will also become a recognizable strand in the DNA of Dragon Quest. Koichi then shares that some of his favorite arcade games were Breakout and Space Invaders, so Yuji quizzes him on how many UFOs you have to shoot down to get a 300-point bonus. Sugiyama immediately tells him the exact number and then the lesser number you need to get after that point in the game. Koichi and Yuji are impressed that he seems to be an avid gamer. They then discuss various Famicom titles in depth, and Sugiyama finally reveals his personal favorite game is Bingo. Mr. Chida asks if he's talking about the board game Bingo, and Koichi informs him it's actually an arcade game that's more action-oriented. Yuji reveals it's a favorite of theirs as well, and we learn the game they are talking about is an arcade cabinet that is basically a blending of pinball and bingo, a variant of which actually would one day make it into Dragon Quest X. Sugiyama recounts that he actually played it back in 1965, and that back then he had to go out of his way to rent a car and drive to another region just to play it, and that the game cost him even more money than the work to get there. But he just loved playing it so much. His love and passion slowly convinced Koichi that even though he may be from an older generation, he might actually have the right mindset to work perfectly with the team. Mr. Chida then recommends that they address the issue at hand, and Koichi sets to grilling Sugiyama about his thoughts on video game music. Sugiyama reveals that he believes that designing game music is the exact opposite of designing a pop song, where the pop song needs to be catchy right away but becomes less impactful and more tiresome the more you listen to it. But video game music is different, because you're going to listen to it for a long time and you don't want to get sick of it. So it can even be a little plain if it needs to be. It shouldn't be flashy, but rather easy and enjoyable to listen to. Koichi agrees emphatically and compares it to classical music, where people should be able to enjoy it for decades and even centuries. Sugiyama feels exactly the same way, and Yuji tells Koichi they should trust him with the project. Koichi gets very serious and informs Sugiyama that the game they're working on now is one that they are pouring their hearts and souls into, and that they're betting their lives on it being one of the best games ever made. He tells Sugiyama of his fears, that they may need to ask him to rewrite music during the project to ensure it's perfect for the game, and tells him that if he can accept that, they would love to have him work on the title with them. And this sudden trust surprises even Mr. Chida, and the rest of the team who are eavesdropping in. Yuji seconds the plea, and the whole team comes falling in, begging Sugiyama to join the team. Sugiyama then reveals he's actually the one asking to work on the project. We then fade out and see Sugiyama sitting at home later, contemplating the title, bringing the chapter to a close. Chapter 6. Production. The chapter opens on Yuji working on the layout for Tantagel Castle. We see the team working hard back and forth, balancing the layouts for smooth gameplay and fun secrets against the need to conserve memory space. Everyone is attentive to even little details like NPC placement, and Yuji comments on specifically placing an NPC outside of a castle as a hint to players that they can find a way to that area. We learn that Yuji often writes the dialogue for NPCs after they have determined their on-screen placement, and Kagehara is shocked when she sees Yuji's desk covered in stacks of papers, and asks if it's all just the scenario writing. Yuji explains that it includes all the information for all the locations, dialogue, monsters, stats, and distributions, as well as spells, items, shops, wares, treasure chests, their contents, and special events. He explains that writing the scenario for an RPG means having a plan for every detail, and further explains that as hard as it all is, it's even more tedious for the programmers to have to write all of that into the game. Then we learn through narration that as they ended January of '86, ENIX had to push out the release of the game to May due to the amount of work that was still needed for it. We see Yuji receiving a call from Mr. Chida about a meeting with Mr. Toriyama, and he's so exhausted he speaks in broken, incomplete sentences. We then see everyone in the meeting intensely scrutinizing the designs Mr. Toriyama submitted, and as we see the now iconic designs, the tension is broken as everyone praises Toriyama for his outstanding work. They are unanimously approved, and Mr. Toriyama is a bit bashful about the praise. As he leaves the meeting, we see Koichi and Yuji discussing his professional abilities and sheer lack of conceit. Then, they return to work and immediately set about translating the monster designs into the 8-bit game. We then pick up with Mr. Sugiyama at home, stewing over ideas for the game's score. He wants to ensure he matches the creator's passion for the work and the influences that built their world. He wants to set the tone immediately with the opening theme and wants you to hear the medieval European themes from the very first notes. Then he plans the now iconic fanfare swell and dives right into the writing. He moves quickly, spurred by inspiration, and quickly drafts all 8 of the original songs that appeared in the first game. He worked non-stop for 2 weeks before excitedly presenting his work to Koichi and Yuji. He shows crude demos and explains the various instruments that will be used, and the team is enraptured by the sound. Yuji is thrilled, and Sugiyama moves into the Tantegel Castle theme, explaining he wanted it to be something that would play at a ball in medieval Europe. Mr. Chida inquires if it has a Baroque influence, and Mr. Sugiyama explains it is essentially a parody of the style that fits within its constraints. He then reveals he has one more song to show them that is absolutely critical, and he introduces them to the overworld theme titled Unknown World. Yuji and Chida are absorbed in it, but Sugiyama notices hesitation from Koichi. He inquires, and Koichi tells him he imagined something more heroic for the hero going into battle. Sugiyama explains he designed the piece around the image of a brave man starting his journey alone, full of excitement and anxiety. Koichi concedes it's a very good song, but that it should give more of a powerful feeling. He then elaborates on the song's importance, as it's the main song the player will hear through the majority of the game, and emphasizes this song in particular needs to work perfectly. Sugiyama informs him the friendliness of the song is something he truly believes in, and that he is confident everyone will approve of in time. So the team agreed to implement it into the game and see how it plays. And for his part of the compromise, Sugiyama promised to work on a replacement based on the notes in case Unknown World didn't work. And they approved the other 7 songs outright. They set about translating them into the game. It's worth noting that Sugiyama wrote the pieces for an orchestral performance first, rather than from the hardware limitations up. So he worked hand in hand with the audio engineer to make the music work within the hardware constraints, which was really going above and beyond for what was typical at the time. And at one point, he helps on a problem with dungeon music, which feels less realistic and loses its tension the longer the player is in the dungeon. Koichi and Sugiyama devise an idea to have the music lower and slow in tempo with each level you descend in the dungeon to raise the tension the further into danger you go. And later, as he's helping at the office, Sugiyama suddenly notices humming. A few people are absent-mindedly humming Unknown World. He excitedly points this out to Kakihara, who is the main one humming, and she explains everyone has memorized it from working on the game and can't help but hum it sometimes. And Koichi tells Mr. Sugiyama there's no need for him to write another overworld theme, as clearly Unknown World is working perfectly for everyone. Sugiyama is thrilled, as this is exactly how he hoped the song would work for the player. And Koichi admits to him he was the first one to start humming the tune. We're told it's now the end of February, as Yuji comes bolting in, declaring he heard the game was finally done, and he can't wait to give it a try. Koichi reminds him it's only version 1, so everything is written but not tested. Yuji then gets a little down as he starts to think about the painful work ahead, attempting to balance out the game, and his stomach twists up in knots. The balance check is clearly something he was not looking forward to. We then see the whole team, including Mr. Chida, diligently testing the game. Mr. Chida inquires to how much XP is required to reach level 2, and Yuji tells him just 20. But with slimes only giving 1 XP each, he is shocked he will have to fight 20 times just to reach the second level, which I have to admit would have been a rough way to start the game. They discuss it, and Chida suggests they make leveling easy at the start to reward players early, and then gradually increase how long it will take with each level. And this ends up becoming another core gameplay element they cracked in their first game. Then, we get into a section showing how the team all developed nitpicks, with Koichi and Mr. Chida questioning how big decision windows should be. And the narration reiterates that the player experience focus is what led the team to getting so much right in this groundbreaking game. And we see everyone pressuring themselves to put everything they could into the game to ensure it was the best game humanly possible. We get a brief episode where Chida and Koichi discuss the feel of the controls before landing on Yuji questioning whether the text-based battle system, instead of an action one, can possibly work, as he starts to get swarmed by doubts. He questions whether players will really feel that they took damage just based on the number, and his brooding starts to trouble the team. Koichi reminds him that they added sound effects and screen shake when getting hit to help with the immersion, and he reassures him they are slowly getting there with it. Yuji can't help questioning, however, and Mr. Chida confides that they all have doubts, and that he's been uneasy since the beginning. But he tells them this is an adventure they're on, and that they're attempting to make the first Famicom RPG, but he believes they're truly making the best game ever. He tells him no true adventure is 100% safe, but that everyone is working hard to overcome their fear and anxiety by coming up with new ideas. A lesson he probably learned from his conversation with Sugiyama. The team joins in, reassuring Yuji, and another programmer adds they've taken away permanent loss by letting you keep your XP and only losing half your gold. So there's a penalty to dying, but you can keep playing till you win. Koichi declares they've hammered out every idea they can think of, and Kakihara asks if this all gives Yuji some confidence. But Yuji can't seem to shake his doubts, and heads off for the day. Concerned, his friends follow him and find him brooding on a park bench. But some small children happen to be playing in a sandbox at the park nearby, and their play slowly draws his attention. They're arguing about a sandcastle they built and what it should be named. Yuji absent-mindedly starts approaching the castle and asking them about it. He's amazed by their design sense, and he asks what each little peak is, and discovers they know what each one is, and in their mind, it's far more elaborate than the last. He then realizes what it really represents to them, their own perfect invincible fortress, with everything they could imagine. This excites the children, who love that he sees what it is. He then joins in playing with them in the role of Godzilla coming to destroy their base that they have to defend. Koichi and Kakihara find a payphone and let Mr. Chida know that Yuji seems to be doing better, and share what Yuji's lesson with the children also taught them. The children's minds are running constant new fantasies, and their imagination will eagerly fill the voids of the game and help create the fantasy world the programmers desperately want to give them. And everyone finally seems able to find some much needed peace about the hardware limitation. And as we enter the spring of '86, the team should be nearing the end of the balancing period. But new concerns arise about the second half of the game being dull when Kakihara arrives and asks if she can finally try the game herself. And since she's not much of a gamer, she believes she will be the perfect outside opinion. And then she immediately dies, which the programmers didn't even really think would be possible at the start. And they realize she went straight into combat with no weapons or armor. And Koichi starts to really panic, as they seem to have problems where it matters most, the beginning and the end. Yuji is mulling over some small fine-tuned balancing details when Koichi calls him in a panic, informing him of the problems, and Koichi has realized it's a problem with the balance of spells available to the player and the monsters. Yuji knows they could fix that, but they would have to rebalance everything again. How would they tell Mr. Chida with their deadline fast approaching? But Mr. Chida is finding problems of his own as they're running playtests of the game with children, where some of the children seem to be having the same problem as Kakihara and are entering battle without exploring the starting castle. As the team all meet to discuss the problem, there is growing concern the game could be labeled user-unfriendly if a lot of people tend to wander before exploring the castle where they could easily acquire gear. Koichi suggests starting them inside the castle, but Yuji realizes it's the same either way, as the players who wander will just as likely wander out of the castle. They won't even learn the command action button and its uses, and will die outside just by moving around. A simple but huge problem. Kakihara wonders if they could lock the player somewhere until they learn the controls, but starts to doubt her idea when Yuji yells out it's perfect. They can lock the player in the throne room with the king, and will have to try interacting with him or the chests to learn they can acquire items. They will have to acquire the key in order to leave, which should be enough clues for the player to learn all the basics. And if they have to go through a set of stairs to leave, it will teach them the stairs command, which is an awkward piece of game design from the original Dragon Quest that required players to select stairs as a command option from the command window. And so, they managed to create a tutorial within the game that doesn't require you to read the tutorial or a manual, and doesn't make you feel like the game is teaching you, but feels truly intuitive. The other programmers set to work reprogramming the opening, and Mr. Chida worries about the deadline. The programmer informs him it won't take long and should be no problem. Just as Mr. Chida starts to relax, Yuji and Koichi decide they'd better tell him about the balance issue now, which outright terrifies Mr. Chida. But the guys affirm the game is monotonous after level 15 and needs to be reworked. Luckily, Mr. Chida, being a seasoned gamer at this point, can firmly understand every issue they raise with the balance of the combat system, and that they have to add more variety so players don't get bored. But Mr. Chida informs them there's no way they could manage this in time for the fast approaching deadline, and they've already delayed the game once. The two programmers push back, saying the game has to be the best it can be, and slowly break Mr. Chida down, as they even resort to begging on behalf of the children who will play the game. Mr. Chida weakly informs them that the release has already been set by ENIX, and that they've already begun advertising the launch date, that Nintendo distributors are already scheduling the stocking schedule, and that a decision like this will have an effect on a tremendous number of people at this point. Everyone seems to feel the weight of all the people they could affect. But Koichi mutters out one last plea, that he understands, but rather than prioritize the seller's circumstances, he wants to prioritize the children whose expectations they can't betray, which recalls the feelings Yuji and Koichi shared earlier with the terrible games being put out. He doesn't want their players to feel that way in the slightest, and Yuji steps up, begging too. Mr. Chida, put in a painfully hard place, finally says, absolutely not. Devastating Koichi is what he wants to say, but even he trails off before finally breaking down, conceding to their pleas, shouting, fine. He immediately picks up a phone and calls the team in charge of manufacturing the game cartridges and asks if they can delay the delivery of the master copy 1 week. He informs them he will carry all of the responsibility of the action and assures he will be the one to explain things to Nintendo. Koichi and Yuji are so grateful, but Mr. Chida asserts the seriousness of their situation and informs them that this 1 week is all they have, and there will be no options to delay again. Koichi turns to the team and apologizes, informing them they only have 7 days, so it's going to be all hands on deck, non-stop. Everyone is stressed and desperate. They agree to begin on the fixes right away. They have an impossible week ahead of them, and everyone pulled together, working day and night, sleeping and eating at the office with no showers. And Koichi declares the fixes are done to a room of crashed out programmers. The team re-enter the debugging phase, where they patiently have to try every possible scenario and order of choices they can throughout dozens of playthroughs to ensure there are no game-breaking bugs. Outside ENIX employees and part-timers were brought in to get the process done before the final deadline. We see everyone, including Mr. Chida, working hard to find bugs and report them to get them fixed. They were going back and forth from finding bugs to fixing them and setting new versions in stone to playtest again that they started putting the time of day on the version number because they would end up reprogramming new versions that many times. And we see that Yuji hasn't been a part of this whole process, as he still has his day job writing for Jump magazine. He stops in after the first 3 days of debugging to see how everyone is doing, and finds a war-torn office deep in the trenches of debugging. As he searches for Koichi and Kakihara, we see he brought them some snacks to help, and a battle-crazed, shell-shocked Mr. Chida stumbles in, clinging to Yuji, thanking him for coming, and begging him to help out. Yuji feels so bad about the state of the office that he decides to give up what remains of his time to help them debug the game, even staying up all night at the office with everyone. And as morning dawns on the ENIX office, we see the final message of the game on a playtest screen. Great, you regain peace to the world, but decide to start on a new journey. May God be always with you. And this has an extra layer of meaning for the programmers not covered in the manga, as they would end up turning around almost immediately after Dragon Quest launched to work on an even more challenging sequel. But as the staff credits roll on the game, we see an exhausted but grateful team, thrilled that the journey is finally over, and the game is ready to go to print. Cheers and tears of joy are shed throughout the office as they all thank each other for sticking together. Mr. Chida calls Mr. Sugiyama to let him know they've succeeded, and shares the sound of the celebrating crew with him. Sugiyama is sitting at his piano at home and tells them he has something to congratulate them, and plays for them through the phone. Everyone is together in this one meaningful moment as Sugiyama plays Unknown World for them. And Koichi begins to tear up, a truly rewarding and heartfelt end to their adventure together. Until a dark sedan pulls up on Koichi a few days later as he's relaxing near a park. Mr. Chida bolts out of the car, screaming. He needs Koichi because they're in trouble. He gets Koichi in the car and speeds down the highway as he informs them they found tons of bugs as they were prepping to start printing copies. They need to head straight to Kyoto to the Nintendo office and fix what they can before they start copying. Koichi panics that they don't have tools for debugging, and Mr. Chida informs him he's already got them, as problems for the team crept up until the very end. But on May 27th, 1986, Dragon Quest was released on the world at last. We then get a brief epilogue picking up 3 years later, in December of 1989, at the ENIX launch party for Dragon Quest IV. We see that it's a fairly luxurious event, and servers are wearing the iconic bunny girl costume from the games. A younger woman introduces herself as Yamakawa and congratulates Yuji Horii on his success, and he in turn congratulates her on the launch of her game. Kakihara enters the room dressed up and way more self-serious now. Yuji tries to compliment her, calling her a veteran along with them, which she huffs at, presumably because of the implication of age. And Koichi and Sugiyama rib him about his lack of tact, and the team talk about how they could never have predicted the popularity the game would earn, and the absolute craze that grew in the media and public around the sequels, which themselves caused a new gaming boom in Japan. They comment that they wrapped up the Erdrick trilogy's story, and that 4 started something all new. And the new gal we were just introduced to comments that it's very much like the Star Wars saga, and the guys panic that this means people will now expect a 5th game too, and they just barely managed to finish 4. And they've done all of this in just 3 years, because they made these games back to back in nearly the same crazed rush as the first. Sugiyama comments that it's hard to keep living up to the expectations for the series, and Mr. Chida replies that just when they think they've finished one grand adventure, they end up on another one right away. He comments on how the gaming market is maturing, and that good games do well, and bad games no longer sell. So competition is rising all around. And Sugiyama comments that this was the real charm of Dragon Quest in the first place, that a player could experience an adventure firsthand, but without courage and a fraternity of friendship, success would be difficult. He comments that this universal message of love towards humanity echoes throughout the series, and they should never forget that this is the heart of the game. He comments that those who strive to make those sorts of games are die-hard adventurers, and their journey will never end, prophesying the success that would continue for the series and the members of the team. And we see, through the first trilogy, sales increased with each title. At this point, the team is eagerly awaiting the response to the fourth game. We then get one last beautiful montage of the people who brought the vision of Dragon Quest to life, and the craze that it drove in the hearts of adults and children all over the country. Their passion to overcome the impossible challenges had paid off for the players they always put first. And that, friends, closes the story of the road to Dragon Quest. A few of those closing scenes near the end get me a little emotional. The subtle brilliance of this manga, in my opinion, is that in many ways it feels like a Dragon Quest story itself, despite being an adaptation of real events. It's simple and straightforward at first, but the challenges, difficulties, and admirable human choices make you really feel something for the characters when they manage to succeed, and you come to feel that they really did bring a good and meaningful thing into existence. So I'm just a sucker for this manga. I also wanted to add a little bit more here at the end to give some context to it. You can tell roughly where it was written by the epilogue, and it's kind of crazy to think that ENIX decided to tell the story of the game's making within just a few years of the first game's release. But the massive cultural phenomenon that it became so quickly meant that ENIX was searching high and low for ways to give fans more, and most of the famous DQ manga titles were launched in this window. And you could see it as just mere capitalizing, but when even the biography is this encouraging and positively oriented towards the best in humanity, it's hard to brush that aside like that. And everything ENIX put out that was DQ related was surprisingly high quality during this period, and managed to capture the sentimental and encouraging human core of the franchise. So I think it was really an admirable thing, giving people more of what resonated with them and holding the integrity of what the series was. My only disappointment is that they stopped at just one volume. It would have been great to follow these characters directly into a sequel about the second game's development, which would have been a harder and slightly more tragic follow-up if you know the development of that game, and could have led into an awesome Return of the Jedi style third volume with the triumph that is Dragon Quest III. I would even have loved an ongoing series that followed the development of each game up to the present. And from what we do know about each title's development, it would have been a pretty engaging narrative. I'm even tempted to try and form a follow-up narrative of my own, but wouldn't be able to do it as the manga I wish it was. But if you'd like to see something like that, let me know, as I'm definitely interested in putting in the work myself to chronicle the development of 2 and 3 in a similar narrative style. Or if you'd prefer I make more videos like this in the future covering other DQ manga titles, including the ones we never got officially in the US, or you'd like videos in this style, recapping the stories of each game and the journeys of different important characters in the series, let me know. I have so much I want to do with this channel, but right now only have a limited amount of time to work on videos each week, so I want to prioritize whatever you guys are enjoying the most as my way of giving back to the Dragon Quest community. Anyways, back to the manga's context. I couldn't find nearly as much info as I wanted about it, so I reached out to the brilliant Pechi, who's an incredible talent for tracking down hard-to-find Dragon Quest info, and he was able to help me out quite a bit. The manga was originally published by ENIX on February 2nd of 1990. There was only ever one other printing, as far as we were able to deduce, by Gangan Comics on September 20th of 1991. And Pechi included this look at both from scans he made from the Dragon Quest Perfect Collection magazine from 1992. A fan campaign was started in 2004 for another reprint of the manga, which is still shared around from time to time on Japanese social media today, and is still slowly gaining votes, though not nearly enough to persuade the publisher to reprint yet. From this and the comments on the site, we were able to deduce that the original prints may not have sold well, and that might be why this project was never brought back during any of the large anniversary celebrations of Dragon Quest, which is a massive bummer for me, as the two versions are both hard to come by and sell for well over $100 in decent condition. I hope at some point they roll the dice on reprinting this manga, and maybe we can help convince them to do it by raising awareness of this still somewhat obscure DQ title. We also learned from the comments that the second edition may have had some cut content, though we can't confirm this ourselves yet, but I believe the version used in the fan translation we read from for this video was the original full version, though I can't guarantee that either. If you'd like to see more of Pechi's work, definitely check out his channel, which you can find in the description below. And finally, I'd like to thank the fan translators, Dahl and Navi-chan, for their work on this. You can find and read their fan translation for yourself on Manga Dex, and I'll include a link in the description of the video. I highly recommend reading it for yourself, because it's a much more sincere and cinematic style than I was able to fully capture in this video. And if you enjoyed this, you'll definitely enjoy reading it even more. And don't forget to leave a comment letting us know what you'd like to see from us next. I'm even considering trying to pull a team together to do a full motion comic style film of this entire manga sometime in the future. So definitely subscribe for more cool DQ content like this. And as always, thank you so much for watching these videos and being part of this community, and thank you for helping our party grow.